Good afternoon, everyone. Um, have you ever had a dream, like, you know, well, might say nightmare, where, well, there's two types of dreams, right? Sometimes there's good dreams, and then there are bad dreams. Either way, when you're dreaming, and then you wake up in the middle of the night, there are dreams that you want to go back into, and sometimes there are dreams that it's like you just want to forget. Right? Everyone had that experience, or is it just me? See, that's the challenge of VR. How do we get people to experience something just like a dream and stay with it, or say, nah, this is not for me? All right, this afternoon, we're going to talk about let us know in VR web, bringing 3D and VR into HTML. Audience survey. Let's start with any UX designers out there? Of course, this afternoon, so show me your hands, right? Okay, so there's some few. Web developers. Everyone had to raise their hand because this is not a developer conference if nobody raised their hands, right? VR developers have been played with VR or have VR at home and wanted to get into this. It's about 10% or less. Anyone into IoT or robotics or played with IoT before? It's also smaller. Okay. All right. Before anything else, let me introduce myself. My name is Ron Dagdag. My Twitter handle is @RonDagdag. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Visual Studio and Development. I'm a lead developer at ThyssenKrupp Elevator. I am a Hackster ambassador. Anybody heard of Hackster.io? Is there a Hackster here in Oklahoma? I'm from Dallas. Okay. If there isn't one, I mean, if you had the chance to go to Hackster.io, it's a place where it's an online community to learn about IoT. If you've had Arduino, Raspberry Pi, or the one this morning about Tessel, if you want to learn more about that, there are some other examples that you can follow and to learn more about IoT. I also organize the Dallas Little Bits chapter and also the AR/VR meetup group. Most of my projects I posted on Hackster. If you're interested in learning more about the stuff that I open source on the side, most of it is the intersection between IoT and AR and VR. So IoT, getting lots of data and then visualizing it using VR. What got me interested into all these VR stuff is this. Anybody seen this before? This is a device. It's in a Raspberry Pi. This is back in 2015. I don't need the sound. So. Okay. But this one right here, what's good about it is she is wearing a HoloLens, the lady that maybe I can. See this one right here? This is a mixture of hardware and software. The lady that's actually talking, she is wearing a HoloLens right in front of her. And this is augmented reality. It's a holographic robot on top of the one. Does that make sense? Okay. So today we're going to talk about virtual reality. Anybody have tried virtual reality headsets? Wow, good crowd. Yes. At one point in time, yes. And what is your experience? Is it something bad or good? Or it's okay, not okay? So, for anyone that hasn't experienced, there is a way, there's some use cases where you can do in virtual reality now. You can paint. You can watch actually someone paint in virtual reality, mural. Of course, games, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest use cases right now for games. And be able to, a lot of shooting games, right? Of course, battles, right? Those things. What else we have? Social VR, that's also upcoming. One of the things that are being able, since Facebook bought Oculus, right? there's integration to Facebook now and be able to quickly log in and connect with people, right? And a lot of it is all about fun, right? Interesting stuff. Well, let's talk about hardware. What is the available hardware that is out there on the? This one is just recently released. If you're following Microsoft, this is the Microsoft mixed reality headset. You can buy this for like $300, $400 range. And the cool thing about this is that it connects to your Windows 10. So once it connects to your Windows 10, then you have a VR headset that is interactive with your. And then there's HTC Vive. That's the one in the middle. And then the one on the upper right is the Oculus Rift. So they range from expensive to the cheapest. The one on the bottom, like this one right here, if you have a Samsung phone, you can actually connect your phone, plug it in here, and then you have a VR device. For a lot of people, most likely, that's how you've experienced VR, right? Through the phone. And of course, you have Google, right? The Google VR. And of course, the cardboard, right? The smallest one that I found is this one. Actually, $5 below, you can buy this for like $5. And then what you do is you just place it in between, and then you have a VR mode. See how? And of course, there's friction in order to get adoption for these VR ecosystems. And a lot of it is gatekeepers, installs, and closed, right? Gatekeepers meaning app stores. Like whenever you want to create a virtual reality app, you have to go through an app store, like Google Store or Oculus Store, or the all these different that can actually block your content if it's really if it's really not good. And of course, install. Especially if you're creating a game or creating an experience, you have to download this app, and sometimes it takes hours and hours just to download an app. And then, of course, it's closed ecosystem. As developers, there's only few game developers in the world, right? There's more web developers. So being able to learn all these different technologies to do development on it, it takes some time. And there's silos. So if you want to develop for this mixed reality headset, you have to use their library, right? If you have to develop for the Samsung, you have to use different set. And how do you scale that and be able to expand the user base? I don't know if you've noticed, for the past few years, the web has been eating everything in its path, from graphics to camera, animation, messaging. Even apps these days uses the same technology to transfer data, using HTTP or web technologies in the background, right? APIs and all that. For motion input and real-time graphics and robotics, if you think about it, there's only 3 million mobile apps versus 1 billion websites in the world. That's a lot of websites, right? And so web VR is virtual reality in the browser. Okay? That is powered by the internet. So one of the things that we like about the web is really because it's open, it's connected, and it's instant. Right? So in web VR, it pretty much opens it up into open, meaning open source, right? Anyone can publish. You don't have to go to an app store in order to publish your game or your app, right? An open source culture, right? Sharing information, being able to learn from each other. Connected. It's connected meaning, I can be on my banking app or my bank account, and then I go to my email, and I can jump from one portal to the other, or one website to the other as I go through these experiences, right? I can be on Facebook, and then I jump on another app. It's so seamless. Does that make sense? And also instant, right? There's no app downloads. And most of the time when you download an app, they tell you to download this app, and after a few days or a few hours, you uninstall it. I'm not going to use this again, you know. So unless you're Facebook or unless you're, you know, Instagram or those social apps or something that's really important for your, but it's good for long tail experiences like shopping, right? And then, so in terms of virtual worlds, we're not going to go there. So WebVR is a browser API that enables WebGL renderings to headset across these VR sensors, meaning be able to get the VR sensors from your phone, or depending on what you're using, if you're using these Windows mixed reality headset, get that rendering data, and get that input, like the head rotation and all that, and bring it to the browser. In that way, we can do WebGL rendering and display it. In terms of history, WebVR was started by Mozilla, which is one of our sponsors today, so thank them because of these. But because it's really good, Mozilla, Google, Samsung, Microsoft, a lot of these companies have already start iterating the specification. But it's not just the specification anymore, it's implemented. And a lot of these browsers, actually this Firefox nightly, they've released it on the Firefox main browser that you have WebVR on it. Microsoft Edge is using WebVR, Chromium for Android, so you can use it on your phone. Oculus has their own browser. If you're using Gear VR, you have a Samsung Internet that you can use also. And of course, the Daydream uses the Google Chrome for Android, and then the mobile polyfill. The mobile polyfill, be able to use it even though you have an older browser. Is the web really capable of VR, right? Imagine if you can walk on a web page. And that's so not normal. Be able to reach out with your hands and interact. So Metaverse. Anybody heard of Metaverse before? Or can define it? So it's a man-made universe, right? It's a shared experience for us, right? Alternate digital reality. But if you think about it, Metaverse is too small for an app store. It's not one app store can't handle all the things that we can accommodate in the Metaverse. We can create all these different experiences on the web. And is it too hard to create web VR experiences? Well, in order to do that, it's kind of difficult. Anybody have heard of WebGL or have done WebGL programming? Oh, we have some people here. That's great. That's awesome. And you know, it's a lot of code in order to accommodate it. And of course, you also do, and of course, 3JS. Anybody have heard of 3JS before? And that's something that sits on top of WebGL, right? And be able to do that. If you think about it, anybody seen this one before? Of course, a lot of people here from Mozilla most likely have seen this one. Does this look familiar? Or kind of like HTML, right? Kind of feels like it, right? What if we can encapsulate that boilerplate and go from one line to the other? This one is in 3JS, and someone can look at this and say, oh yeah, this is how you would build a box inside WebVR, or inside 3JS. You can see there's 3 variables that you would need, and then, of course there's X, Y, Z in order to determine where is it located and all that stuff. And if you look at this is kind of like about the same. What if we can encapsulate it? So there's color red, and then there's the position, and we're talking about a box, right? So that's what A-Frame is. A-Frame is a web framework for building virtual reality experiences. It started back, it was launched last December, and it's been growing. So here's a example, you have your HTML. Of course, you have your JavaScript library that you include, the A-frame.js. And then, of course, you have the A scene to start that. And, of course, you kind of see where it's at, right? There's a box. There's kind of cylinder. And then you see that color. Yes, the CSS, kind of like CSS, right? There you have position, X, Y, Z. And we're talking about, and of course, this is a right-hand rule, right? So X, Y, and then Z positive is going this way. And of course, radius, because you would need that in order to build your, and then sky. Sky would be your background color. Is this making sense, or is this something that, of course, it's after lunch, so I want to make sure that everything's like going well. There it is. This is what we have. This is this code right here. Build this. I don't know if, see, I'm using Chrome in my browser. And this is a website. My presentation is using Reveal.js. And this is a VR website. And if you use this with your phone, you can actually click on this one on the lower right. And it would take you to a VR. It would split the screen into two. You have the left eye and the right eye in order to do VR. But in the web, you see, you can easily spin up and show your 3D models that way. Cool? Anybody played with Unity before? Or, okay, yeah. Anybody heard of entity component system? A lot of game development system, that's the pattern that they use, where everything is an entity, and then you add components, you add features, right, to it, plugins, and that's how you enhance that capabilities and functionality. So in A-frame, you can do that too. You see that you can add the geometry, right? You can add A entity is A-dash entity. They all inherit from A-dash entity. And then, of course, geometry, you extend that capability by adding, materials, position, rotation, animation, right? So this simplifies, VR or 3D graphics into your browser. Of course, you can add movement patterns, explode, those kind of stuff. So A-frame have these entities that are included in the library. But since it's open source, and we're talking about the internet, it opens up into a lot more things that we can do. A lot of these, if you go to GitHub, you can download. So they have some components for GLTF, or you have components that you can use if you want to use controllers, videos, and all that stuff, or GIF files. And they have a registry of it and curated to expand that capability. So it's just, you can browse and say, okay, I have this entity, I want to expand the capability, and I can just select that. So here's one good example. See, anybody heard of Leap Motion? They have someone created a Leap Motion. Where's my Leap Motion? Yeah. Leap Motion is a device where you can detect your hand, and with few lines of code, you can actually see your hands in VR. And it gets attached to one of these. And of course, they have also some visual tools. Let's go to, if you go to aframe.io, there's a lot of examples there. Of course, these are all in GitHub. This is the one that we were just looking at. Hold on a second. So, there you go. This is one of what we're looking at. If you press Control-Alt-I on that website, it has a visual designer to help us locate where these ones are. And then it becomes just properties that you can change inside the browser to make it easy for us as web designers, right? Be able to modify where this. At the end of the day, it's changing the way we interact with websites in the future. If you think about it, now you're not only looking at 2D space, right? Left and right, how you would build your web page. Now you're looking at it as a director, like in a film. You're trying to identify which components will be shown, which one would be swapped, and you're telling a story about your site and how they would interact. So that's one of the things that. Does that make sense? Yeah? In terms of integration, since it is HTML, then all our JavaScript thingies, we can do document that query selector, we can create elements, add stuff, and set attributes, event listeners. You can access that. And just changing properties and the DOM APIs. And it works with everything. If you've tried D3.js, Vue.js, anybody played with React? There's actually a React VR that's different from A-Frame, what you can use it for, but there's a way to also use React in A-Frame. Redux, you played with jQuery. At the end of the day, you're just manipulating the DOM. In Angular, we have some samples there too. And of course, if you're a 3D modeler, it works with Blender, Maya. If you can export it with GLTF or OBJ files, then you can show that and create those models in VR. In terms of community, it has grown. This community has grown for the past year since they've released it. You go to aframe.io, every week they have blogs, and you will see how other developers are expanding this ecosystem and learning from each other. Some use cases. Sometimes it's better to kind of see how, yeah, it's good on websites. What is it for? So here's one from Mozilla. This is actually, you can paint inside VR and be able to, if you have an Oculus Rift or a HTC Vive, you can, there's a project called A Painter. You can get in and be able to try that out. Okay. And of course, in terms of journalism, this is one actual website that be able to have different experience, right? So there's some video, and then there's 360 images around you, and you can navigate it that way. And there is one journalism, Journey to Mars. Be able to feel like you're inside the moon, and you see this one's right here. If you highlight that, you look around, and it would pop up, and then you can read or some narration in the background. You see how it's changing the way we interact with websites, and it's not just click and drag and touch. These are some things that other people have done. City builder, drag and drop stuff into, of course, one way for education too, to expand education, is to data visualization, right? Isn't it cool to learn math that way? If I know what sine, cosine, what it looks like, I would remember it rather than reading a lot of text or just 2D images. And if you can walk around it, it kind of shows you that capabilities. Of course, gaming, right? Gaming in a browser, right? Prototyping, sound, you can easily connect it with sound and all that. Yeah, this is the math world. So there's also some samples like that. Anybody played with AR, augmented reality, or used Pokemon Go? Imagine if you can do that also inside the browser, right? Being able to do that inside the browser. So the Web VR Studio that you can use. Real estate, this is a good use case. And it's very interesting. I want to show you guys what I'm talking about here. Sometimes duplicate the screen. It's like here. Anybody heard of Matterport 3D? This one is using WebVR or WebGL, but this is inside the browser, being able to have high-end images. So they have these scanners that the realtors would go around the house to capture the room, and then inside the browser be able to walk the whole house. And this is all inside the browser. Of course, for education, like I said, being able to interact with items, right? In terms of examples that I've used it for, there's this one. I have this business card. Maybe it'll make sense if I show you guys. See if I can connect real quick. See my screen. Here, let's play the video. Maybe do a sample. So I'm going to go to my barcode scanner, right? And there's a barcode on this application. Do you see my screen? Oh, it's on the side. You see on the right side? A little bit? Okay, I just need to move that. See my screen now? Okay, well, thank you. So this one right here, this is running in the browser. And this is detecting, so I scan the barcode, I'm on my browser, right? It's using Chrome. And be able to create a custom marker that is detecting that picture and be able to have augmented reality. Of course, I'm streaming on top of that. And of course, be able to click on it and go to that link. And it's few lines of code and be able to accomplish that. Does that make sense? Yeah, so in terms of use cases, that's one use case that it's changing the way we interact with website, right? I've played with this one. This one is, have you heard of Kinect, right? And you can actually, there's this hardware that you can buy that is it's called Latte Panda. It has a full Windows 10. It's a full Windows 10 machine the size of a credit card. But it has Arduino connected to it. You can connect HDMI video on it. And so that means I can connect. I can connect the Kinect. I can connect Kinect to it and get sensor data and be able to visualize it. So this one, my son is in front of Kinect, and be able to get that one. And this one is running in the browser, getting all the streaming, all this. Remember we talked about spheres, and you saw those spheres in that website. So I'm collecting all that data and all the joints that you can connect, that you can get from Kinect, and be able to stream it and display it on screen. Does that make sense? So that's one of the reasons why we have these, that what my talk is about VR web, and let it snow, is because I kind of hack one of these, created one of these snow globe, okay? This one right here, it is an ESP8266. It's a Wi-Fi chip. It has a Wi-Fi chip, okay? And I connect it with an Arduino 101. But this 8266, ESP8266, I found out that since it has a Wi-Fi, you can host a website in this chip. But you know what happens when you can host something on this chip, right? That means you can host a VR website. And so that's what I did. So what I did was to create a VR website in here that responds, that works with, of course, you know, as a client, I'm using Mozilla here to be able, or the Firefox browser, to be able to connect to my HTC Vive. But the website is hosted here. And then I'm getting the acceleration sensor. So when I flip it, it started raining inside virtual reality. I expanded it a little bit. So this one right here, of course, it's kind of like the same way, but the 3D assets that you see relates to what you have here. So I did that last Christmas, and it's really fun. In terms of robotics, I have this project called Rover. So you're inside VR, right? I call him Rover because you're in between. You're in VR. You're in between the moon and the Earth, and then you can control a car or a small rover on Earth and be able to move it around and streaming data inside, streaming videos inside VR. And that's one of the things that you can use it for. Let me see if I can. So this one is using the leap motion in order to send that control on Earth inside VR. Right. So this is my small rover. It has a camera. It's using Intel. What is it now? Arduino? No, anyway, it's an Intel chip, but it has a Linux box in it. That means I can install Node. Since I can install Node, I can create this web browser. I can host a web VR website in it, and that's one of the reasons that we were able to accomplish this. So as web developers, we're not just looking at it as like, I can host it on the website. I can host it on one of these too, and be able to do controls on that. Let's try this out. Maybe anyone wants to use their phone? Sometimes it's better when you experience it. There might be a lot of people, so we might be cramped when we go there, or show you guys. But let me know when you're ready. Sometimes it's better to experience it and kind of understand. But you don't have to, but it's fun. But if you go to that website. This is a social VR camping. There's a few people there. Of course, I'm the one that's look back or something. So this is all using your phone, and oh, that's a lot, lots of heads. They all look the same. But you see, this one's running in the browser. It's using Firebase in the background, and be able to connect that. It's all open source, all online. And there's a library that Hayden Lee built to make it easy to build these experiences. In terms of 3D prototyping, maybe there's this 3D.io, this company that you might be interested in too. And the interesting part is they have these libraries of all materials that you can put in your VR. So if you just want to try it out tonight and say, hey, I want to experiment on this, if you go to furniture.3d.io, just pick one of the furnitures there. You can open in CodePen and JS Fiddle and start working on it. This is that A-frame stuff. And what it'll do is it'll show this in VR. Very easy to do, very easy to get started, right? And you have assets that you can play with. And there's this guy that actually made like a universe of furnitures. So imagine all these furnitures floating inside VR, and you can walk, look around, and you can move forward, endless furniture, because it would load in the background as you go, and with all the libraries of all these 3D assets. Cool? Yeah? Of course, in mixed reality, let's move this a little bit further. If you've updated your Windows 10, there is a mixed reality portal. Anybody heard of that one? You've seen it somewhere? It comes with Windows 10. And of course, if you get one of these, It's easy to set up. I mean, compared to the Oculus Rift or the Vive, this one actually doesn't require to have those lighthouses. They call them lighthouses, or the ones that stays in the corner. This is inside out tracking, right? So this is the only headset that you need. It's less setup you have to do. But it looks somewhere like this. See if I can control it. You see how, I don't know if you've noticed, but my mouse gets smaller. Let me see if I can control it. Sometimes it's kind of tricky. But since I can't demo it using this and connect it because I'm using the HDMI port to show you guys, so this is like a simulation that you can try it. But yeah, you can move forward. This is what they call Cliff House, where you can try out, kind of have your own room. But I don't know if you've noticed, there's the Edge browser inside VR. Hold on. See if I can get to that. So impact simulation. So you can actually visit websites in it. Isn't that wild? So my last pass is asking, but see if I can move closer. And so thank you to the guys that are outside, Microsoft Edge people outside. Thank them for having the Edge browser inside your VR. So actually, if you're in there, you can go to aframe.io and be able to experience and jump from one VR experience to another VR experience using that. Of course, you can decorate this room as much as you want, and there's actually one place here too. I don't know if I can show you guys, but there is a theater room, and you can watch Netflix and all those. But yeah. But they have these controllers, so once you get one of these controllers, you can then, you see this one on the left side? That's one of the controllers that you can move around. And it just connects through it's a Bluetooth controller. And this one has lights on it, so it can detect. It can detect. But yeah, but eventually, I won't be surprised if Excel gets in here and see how productive we become. Right? Right? Yeah, there's still some things that you still have to consider whenever you're creating VR experiences, right? I mean, keyboard, it's harder to see, but those are things that you have to consider. But now you can see your hand, you can move forward and backward, look around. Okay. All right, so aframe.io have expanded. There's lots of contributors, stargazers. They have, you can connect with them through Spot, through Slack. Lots of features, featured project. You can connect through aframe.io. You can follow me through, if you have questions, I'm willing to help you. Go to hackster.io to check out some of my projects. Let me show you some code, and maybe it'll make sense if... Okay. Let's look a little bit of... Try to experiment, since we have some time. So let me see if I can get this one started. So this one right here. So remember that, we've looked at this code right here. Of course, you can read that one, right? Good? So you have the box, you have scene, and in order to add capabilities on it, so let's just, so you can add a script, and then maybe add an environment, and then take out this sky. So I added a component, right? A-frame environment, and I used it here. I have a preset forest, and let's see what happens. Go back here. So now I have a forest, right? Do Control-Alt-I. See how it's generated a forest for you, and that big, that you can get lost. You won't move around, right? So you move around that forest, and just like that, be able to have an experience. Cool? Let's try another demo. Let's do this demo one. Yeah, just regular box, right? Let's go to demo one. So I have some scripts that I added. Register scene, register camera, demo one, just some of the JavaScript. I have a camera, remember, you saw the plane and then the sky. So let's look at some assets here. So in the demo one, I want to add another cylinder. This is one way to add another cylinder, because I have one cylinder that you can set up, and just setting attributes. You can set attributes this way. So just do color, and this one right here, this add cylinder gets called, right? You specify the location where it's going to be X, Y, Z, and then you can set up those position and color. Let's see what happens. See how easy it is just to get those things started? Now I have a different color because I added the color attribute. Now it's reading the color attribute. Okay. Okay, let's have another one. This one right here, have demo 3. Just the box, right? 3 boxes. So just to make it simpler so in order to add animation on these boxes, A-frame provides A-animation, and you specify, okay, which one are you going to rotate, and then specify the name, which is the variable that you call to begin it, and the animation, and of course duration, and is it millisecond, and then location, which axis is it going to be, and then how many times they're going to repeat. Okay, so we have that. So you can do animation. And of course this one, a camera, I added this cursor, so this loop controls, and so that we can have I'll show you what I'm talking about here, the cursor. So demo 3. So in order to register a component, you specify a register component, add a new capability on your HTML. You say box cursor listener. And if you go back here, see how I'm using it. I'm just adding it as a attribute, right? Or as a component. And then this one is going to get called, and then it would add an on-click event. So when you do an on-click, it would emit spin, right? And then this spin would call this animation. Okay. And these are all in GitHub, and I can show you where it's at. But see this cursor right here? That's the one. The A entity cursor fuse. That's the one I'm talking about. And then when you select it, it rotates. You select these, it rotates. It becomes on click after a few seconds, because this one right here specify how long. See that fuse timeout, how long before it calls the on click. Does that make sense? So this is just a simple introduction. Of course, you can add more other things. There's a control for, on your browser too. You can do that. There's a way to to control using this Xbox controller inside your browser. There's a way to control using this leap motion device. This is the leap motion device anyway, by the way, but it would detect. And it runs in the browser, so you can control it using the browser. So I would like to have some time for questions, and that is the end of my presentation. So if you have some questions, feel free to contact me. If you want to try this out, I'll set it up in the back and ready to go. Yes, sir. It doesn't have any, it doesn't come out of the box. There is a component that you add for physics and then be able to have that capability, so you'll be able to do that. Yeah, so there's a physics, if you search for A-frame physics. I don't have it in the top of my head, but sometimes, yeah, this one, A-frame physics systems. So for simulation, if you're thinking about simulation that you want to display, and this works fine. There are some samples if you want to try out, but it's using Canon.js in the back end. Anybody else have questions? No? Cool. All right. Is this helpful? This is something, when you go home tonight, you're going to try this out, right? Go here. I want to make sure that I spread the word. And, there's also an A-frame school. If you go to aframe.io, that A-frame school, if you want to play with this technology, you can go here. And it's an interactive course. It walks you through step by step. Go to useglitch.com and be able to expand that. And I think it's very useful. Very, very good tutorial if you want to start with this. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.